dance school since she was in second grade, Patricia had never interacted much with Joanne. The prospect of being at her home, the point of much gossip among her fellow students, was frightening. Would it be nauseatingly pink and old-fashioned like a dance studio? Or would it be like the inside of a Volvo, cluttered and full of lipstick-stained tissues? It was a short drive, and they pulled up in front of an apartment complex she had seen many times on drives with her mother. She had never imagined people living in such a nondescript place. It had always been a part of the landscape and never a final destination. Joanne lived on the ground floor. Her door seemed inconspicuous compared to her neighbors, which was accented with garbage bags that appeared to carry nothing but empty Wild Turkey bottles. As Joanne ushered her in, Patricia anticipated the smell of kitty litter or mothballs, but only detected the heavy scent of household odor eliminators. Joanne left the TV on the news before disappearing into the kitchen. Patricia tried to examine the framed photos above the TV, but a layer of dust prevented her from seeing them clearly. The piano in the corner was also coated with a dusty deposit, as were the flea market lamps and end tables. Patricia took a deeper breath, and for the first time, noticed the underlying smell that the odor eliminators had failed to fully cover up. Something stale, moldy, and decaying. Minutes later, Joanne called from the kitchen. "I'm glad you're here. I found the most precious knick-knack at Trader's Village, and I think you'll appreciate it." Patricia entered the small kitchen to find a plate of waffles in the geometric shape of Hello Kitty's head. "It's a Hello Kitty waffle maker," Joanne unnecessarily explained. They sat down, and Joanne drenched the stoic faces with syrup. Patricia tried to seem grateful, but as always, was slightly aghast by Joanne's enthusiasm. She sliced off Hello Kitty's ear with her fork and bit into the syrup-soaked sponge. The fork had barely touched her tongue when she began to cough. Her throat constricted, as if the dust from the television picture frames were blocking her airways. Joanne pushed a glass of water towards her and patted her back nervously. Patricia gulped down the water, but the coughing persisted. Her eyes watered and the room seemed to shrink. Finally, she coughed out the lone slice of food. She held the soggy mess in her hand and looked for a napkin. Joanne pushed the glass of water towards her again. "Drink," she said. "Keep drinking." Patricia drained the glass, watching Joanne the entire time. Her teacher had an anxious expression that emphasized the slackness of her jaw. It was the same expression she wore a week later at the dance recital, which took place in June, when it was much too hot for tights and caked-on stage makeup. Her class's performance was right in the middle of the recital, and by the time they were called to line up backstage, Joanne was noticeably haggard. "Absolutely no talking," she hissed. The girls fidgeted in their lace-trimmed skirts and fiddled with the distracting polyester magnolias in their hair. The audience applauded and everything darkened as the curtain fell and dancers fled the stage. Her class trotted to their pre-marked positions and the curtain rose again, this time to the tune of the Viennese waltz that Patricia now loathed out of over-familiarity. As usual, Patricia was relegated to the corner during most of the performance and had a clear view of backstage. She watched Joanne observe their footwork with her mouth agape, her eyes furrowed. Occasionally, a beam of stage lighting would stray across her, illuminating her wrinkled, pockmarked face, but for the most part, she remained in the shadows. Eventually, the song began winding down, and the girls positioned themselves for the finale, the endless pirouette. They all started in unison, but someone always spotted too early or too late. In the end, they were each on their own axis, spinning at their own haphazard pace. Patricia spun with her eyes closed, straying away from her mark and enjoying the frightening sense of dizziness. Her pulse seemed to throb exclusively from her legs each time she bent them for support, and with each revolution, her bones carried her further and further away from the others.